not going to change?
No, we'll do it.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Today.
Yes, thank you for having me. Appreciate it. You should have an outline of this in your board report if you haven't seen it already, and I'll tell you more specifics later, but this is our joint World Best Workforce meeting with also A&I, Achievement Integration with Sarah Schofield. So this particular World's Best Workforce was developed in 2013, and the requirements is really around the 5 goals. And they're all children are ready for school, all 3rd graders can read at grade level, all racial and economic achievement gaps between students are closed, all students are ready for career in college, and all students graduate from high school. And so I'll be outlining those today and those goals and where we ended up. This is the 2021-22 World's Best Workforce. So I'm reporting on last year's numbers. So the World's Best Workforce requirement is that school boards hold an annual public meeting, and that's what today is all about, in collaboration with A&I. And so the date of the meeting is today. This report will be found on our district webpage, as well as you can collect a copy in the district office at any time. If there's questions that come out of today for the public, for you guys, and you want answers, please ask. I'm happy to answer phone calls, emails, etc., based on the information in the document.
Thank you for this all. Can I get an approval for the agenda?
Second.
Motion by Pat, second by David. And now we'll go into the highlight.
Thank you.
Thanks.
We'll get this pulled up and then we'll get going.
Oh, that's right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Given this is a special meeting, we'll move right into presentation systems. We will discuss workforce 2021-2022.
Thank you. All right. So our district advisory members are up on the board. This year we've been meeting twice already, but last year the meetings were held virtual, and I'm not sure how many meetings were held. We have a number of members, and we continue to add to our team, and so we have a few more added to this year's team from last year, and we appreciate any help from the community we can get on this, as well as the district staff that join us. Our World Best Workforce requirements is to have a process in place to ensure students from low-income families, students of color, American Indian students are not taught at a disproportionate rates by inexperience out of field and ineffective teachers. And you can see the ineffective teachers is up on the board. It kind of describes what defines an ineffective teacher, an out-of-field teacher, or an inexperienced teacher. I won't read them, but they're there. The ISD 318 profiles, you can see the profiles of our staff. We have 90% of our staff are deemed experienced by MDE. This is laid out on MDE's website. 98% of our teachers have a license or permission in the subject area they teach, and 52% of our teachers have advanced degrees. And so we have a very knowledgeable staff in ISD 318. ISD 318 offers programming for all students by placing experienced teachers in all of our core subject areas, including Title I and ADSES, special education settings as well. We have equitable distribution of students based on our FastBridge, our STAR results, our MCAs, and we use our data warehouse EduClimber to create those class lists. We also use our multi-tiered systems of support to ensure all students in grade K5, not 1-5, K5, who are performing below grade level have an intervention attached to them. And a lot of what you're hearing today, I have outlined previously in the Data for Learning Indicator Report, as well as the Staff Development Indicator Report. So some of this is redundant, but it's good to talk about it again, because it's good to know that we've got things in place and we're moving in the right direction. Our District 318 seeks to review and improve access to experienced, effective, and in-field teachers for all students. Our staff development strategies and goals follow those required by statute. I have listed them here. Our goals, they were also outlined in our staff development indicator report. I'm not going to go over them again, but they're there. I'm just going to name a few. We focus on school and classroom and research-based strategies that improve student learning, which has been outlined by our OG. It's stuff that we're including with OG and Gillingham. Provide opportunities for teachers to practice and improve their instructional skills, and we provide opportunities for teachers to use data as part of their daily work to increase student achievement. That's just to name a few. but we do quite a bit to continue to provide PD for our staff. Here is our demographics of our students in our district. I'm putting them up there because I think it's good that our staff and students, we can do a comparison. We have some lookalikes there, and students see themselves and teachers see themselves and as well. So our District 318 continues to seek to increase and retain teachers of color to work in our district, and we do the following. We work with our Anishinaabe, Geklu, Amadouin team to recruit, hire, and train. We include diverse staff members in the recruitment and hiring, and we integrate AVID and career pathway programming taught by experienced teachers. These programs support students of all backgrounds and abilities. And in addition, I think a unique part of where we're at, our location, is a partnership with Itasca Community College and the Grow Your Own program. So there's a number of things that continue to be done to support bringing in teachers and staff of color. Strategies to support teacher growth. Some of these are new, and some of these have been in place for a while. So we have PLCs every Wednesday, and those are dedicated for all staff and their leaderships teams to ongoing PD for teachers. We have teacher advisor programs and also principal PLCs monthly. In addition, we have building site teams developed in all buildings to disaggregate data and determine building goals. As I move forward, our first goal, that all students are ready for school. It's important. This is an important piece. And our goal for that one is that children, we would increase the number of children who meet or exceed proficiencies in 4 out of the 9 early numeracy and early ISDs. And student will also show gains in the fall to spring score and letter sound fluency as measured by FAST. And you can see here, those are the areas that we measure, and we measure them in early childhood, Head Start. And we work with Head Start to ensure that their programming is where we need it. Those are the areas, and you can see how they fared in 21-22. You can see fall to spring, and you can see the growth. And their growth was not just in 4 out of the 9, but it was in all categories. And so pretty exciting to see that our students are coming to kindergarten prepared and ready for what they're going to face in the rigorous standards. So they met their goal, which is exciting. Our next slide, 3rd grade. So all students in 3rd grade achieving grade level. You can see here, our goal is that the children will increase 3% from 51.8 in 2021 to 54.8 in 2022. You can see that the goal was not met. We actually just decreased by 4.1% from 51.8% to 47.7%. And I can talk a little bit about some things later on about the whys behind some of this and some of the challenges we faced during the pandemic. So here's grade 3 again, achieving, this is their goal of statewide math, and our goal again was to increase 3%. And here we did not meet our goal again. We only gained 1.1, but have from 59.1% to 60% in our area of mathematics for 3rd graders, which again, above state average, but we can do better. As it relates to our free and reduced population in 3rd grade, this area as well, we did not meet our goal. In this area, we increased the achievement gap from 11.3% to 12.7%. When you look at 3rd graders, again, and you're looking at American Indian population, this area as well, we did not meet our goal. We increased this from 9.1% from 5.3 in 2021 to 14.4 in 2022. The next slide, close the achievement gap in regards to mathematics in 3rd grade. You can see here, we did not meet our goal in that area as well. We increased by 5.3%. From 9.4 in 2021 to 14.7 in 2022. We look at the next one. This is American Indian and related to math. In this area, we also increased that gap by 13%. You can see there we went from 9.4 in 2021 to 22.7 in 2022. Our goal in career and college ready. In 2021, our goal was 100% of high school students had a career and college readiness plan, and in 2022, we can say that 100% of our students did have that in place. The next goal was graduation. The percentage of students who graduate from high school, we did meet that goal as well. We increased by 4.6% from 87.2 in 2021 to 91% in 2022, with Big Fork at 100%. So as I stated earlier, we had 2 unprecedented years of COVID, and it impacted all students, and more significantly, it impacted our subgroups, the students that I mentioned, the categorical students, American Indian, free and reduced lunch. We have now a number of things in which I outlined in my previous indicator report for data for learning that we're doing to put things in place to help this. And to name a few, we have invested heavily into our data systems and identifying kids that need Tier 2 and Tier 3. We've also instituted Orton Gillingham for all K-2 teachers. That was this summer's training. In addition to that, we've established classroom walkthroughs for administrators with a focus on environment for learning, standards and curriculum, and timely improvement. We put an intervention block at the elementary schools to help with interventions for all kids. We're using principal PLCs to increase instructional leadership capacity. We're analyzing the curriculum. We had the Teaching and Learning Institute this summer to help with PD. We have a shift and a new direction for the area of reading and looking at the science of reading. We're teaching our data systems, and so becoming more data literate with STAR and EduClimber and FastBridge. I feel like we know more now than ever about our students. We're strengthening the onboarding process for new teachers, and we continue to strengthen the MTSS framework. So we have a number of things that we're putting in place to help reduce the barriers for students, as well as reduce the impact of COVID-19 that it caused in the last 2 years. With that, I'd entertain any questions. Otherwise, we can get Sarah up as well.
Welcome, Sarah.
All right, thank you. Today I will present on achievement and integration. Again, achievement and integration, the purpose of this is to pursue racial and economic integration, increase student achievement, create equitable opportunities, and to reduce academic disparities. Our goal is to support the work that the world's best workforce is doing to provide opportunity for all students, specifically our American Indian population, but really we're looking at all students. 2021-2022 school year was the end of our first A&I rotation. These are 3-year rotations, so we will be reporting on year 3. The 22-23 school year that we are currently in is starting year 1 of our second 3-year rotation. As we go through, I will kind of mention where we're at currently with the current school year. Again, that second rotation. Really, the goals are going to remain the same with those data points obviously pinpointed where we're currently at and moving forward. So with this, we have 2 achievement goals, 1 integration goal, and then 1 teacher equity goal. So goal number 1 is an achievement goal, and it states that ISD 318 will increase the number of American Indian students that enroll in post-secondary education from 71.5% in 2019 to 86.5% in 2022. We did not meet this goal. Per our data, we had 83.4% of American Indian students enroll in post-secondary education. With that being said, that data can be skewed, and why I say that is because MDE reports on a 4 or 6 year post-graduation rate for post-secondary education. We want something that's going to give us results today about our students that are sitting in front of us. So I have worked with the high schools, and we have sent out our own data collection, and we know that there can be holes in that system. Just making sure that we're making connections with 100% of our students, which we are not, and making sure that they're filling out that survey. So we're really excited that we can now pair with what the high school is doing with Zello. Tanis and I are working with Zello to help create a spreadsheet to give us all this information so that at the end of the year, it'll spit out all the information we need. So moving forward with this next rotation, we know that our data is going to be more clear and make sure that we are connecting with 100% of our students. Goal number 2 is integration. So it says in collaboration with ISD 318, Indian Education, Grand Rapids School District will enrich cultural awareness for all through an increase of opportunities for experiential activities consistently from 1 in 2019 to 3 in 2022. The key of this is we want to create new opportunities instead of doing the same thing every year. ISD 318 offered 4 new opportunities in the 21-22 school year. The biggest one that we are doing, our platform for this, is we have created a multi-district cultural cohort with ISD 317, which is our partner in A&I, and we meet once a month. This has taken us some time to get off the ground, but I can say that this coming school year, we have really great representation from both 318 and 317. Our goal is to come together and talk about what both districts are doing. And ways that we can collaborate, get students from one district to another. How can we pair up and create PD opportunities for staff members? What bring to the community? So it's really great collaboration time. And again, we meet once a month to do that. Again, we want students to participate in these cultural activities. We want to bring those cultural learning into the classrooms. So if someone has a really great idea, we can bring it to the table and we can expand on that between the 2 districts. Greenway is going to join us in this starting in January. So although A&I is just the 2 districts, we're really supporting our conversation wider. And of course, more people at the table just means, you know, more collaboration and more success for all of our students. Goal number 3 is another achievement goal. The percentage of kindergarten students will show growth towards kindergarten preparedness as measured by FastBridge assessment, from 21% proficient in the spring of 2019, which was measured by PAST, to 33% proficient in the spring of 2022. So we are measuring those kindergartners at the end of kindergarten, but our hope is that through kindergarten preparedness and in kindergarten, at the end of kindergarten, that we're showing that proficiency. We're happy to say that 72% of our kindergartners showed to be proficient at the end of kindergarten last year. In reading, which is a really great number, and that's according to FastBridge. Some of the things that I'm really excited about for this are Kinder Camp and Kinder Roundup. Kinder Camp 2021, so 2 summers ago, would have been the end of this report, and we had about 70 kids attend. At that time, we had the storm come through and we were only able to attend day 1 and day 4, but it was still successful. We had really great feedback from the community. This past summer was the beginning of our next rotation, but we had 66 students come through and we were able to hold it 4 full days. Really great input from teachers and staff. We ran 7 classrooms and got those students in with breakfast at lunch and school bus and all of the things. So that's a really exciting piece. K Roundup is another one. Last spring, we had 56% of our families attend Kindergarten Roundup, which was up from 54% the year before. We have already met this year. We're already starting to plan for this spring. And our goal this year is just to get families in the door. We know how great of an opportunity that this is. We know how exciting it is for us as a staff. So we just want that to be felt within the community and get more families in the door. But again, 56% of our families attended this spring. And goal number 4 is teacher equity. ISD 318 will increase the number of students served in the Homegrown Teacher Project from 8 in 2019 to 15 in 2022. In the 2022 school year, we had 12 students enrolled in the Intro to Teaching course. And the Intro to Teaching course is our way that we measure the students that are enrolled in this. Again, with that Zello implementation this year, students coming into 9th grade are already interacting with Zello, and we can start pinpointing those students who have any amount of desire in the education field. And so that initial counseling and that scheduling can happen as soon as those students walk in the door. We're utilizing that platform throughout, and those intentional conversations are taking place so we can pull those students and work with them for the next 4 years to ensure that they have the support that they need, the support that we can give them, and hopefully continue down the path of education. So those are the 4 A&I goals, and I open up to questions.
Any questions from the board?
Can you talk a little about the Zello? Like how do the kids get started with that? And what kind of things do they get asked, or how's it work?
Yep, so it is a very interactive platform. It's fun and engaging. So when students enter in, it's buttons and it's pictures and it's colorful. Counselors are implementing it now. We are working with, so Avid, the Avid teacher is implementing it within her classroom. So the students within Avid are utilizing it 9 through 12. And then specific classrooms within Grand Rapids High School are coming to the counselors, or the counselors are going to them, asking if they can help integrate this into their classroom. So what students are doing is they're taking interest surveys. They're going through their list and they're picking kind of what is it that my interests are aligning with, and they can actually do the research right on the platform. They can pull resources from outside of Zello and paste them in so that they're building kind of their own like portfolio, you can say. And then that can tie into schools and they can do all of this research so they can actually create their journey and their story. It doesn't have to be specific to one. Maybe they're interested in the medical field, but also interested in law enforcement. They can bring both of them together. And once they start doing research, they can say, well, maybe the medical field isn't for me. I'm going to take this off of my plate. So it's not on their main dashboard anymore, but they can still interact with it on things like that.
And so all the kids throughout 9th through 12th grade will eventually take it and work with it.
Yep.
And then they can keep changing it or something throughout the school.
Absolutely. Yep.
And we're doing the same thing in Big Fork for the Big Fork students. as well.
Big Fork doesn't have Zello right now.
Okay.
Maybe it's something we can look into. In Big Fork, I think the intentional conversations are happening all the time. I know that when I'm up there for Avid, it's a continuous conversation. So Avid is obviously that Avid elective, but in Big Fork, we're expanding Avid school-wide at a much greater pace than we are here in Grand Rapids, because we can have the support of all of our teachers. You know, we're a close-knit group. So in that way, we're kind of utilizing those strategies up there in a little bit different way than we are in Grand Rapids, just because of the population size.
Thank you for a really great detailed report. I'm stunned by the kindergarten numbers.
Yes.
That's amazing work.
It is.
We're a little soft, as you've noted, in the homegrown teacher preparation project. You know, we're making progress, but not enough. How can we go about encouraging additional students to be thinking in that area?
One of the things that we've talked about is these students are around teachers and educators all day, every day. So we are a walking billboard for the profession. And so I think it's just opening up that conversation. We have tried putting posters on the outside of teachers' doors, like ask me about my journey towards becoming an educator. I think it's also knowing that education can be beyond a teacher, and that it might be a stepping stone. I think it's just opening up that conversation. I feel we know it as a society, less and less students are going into the education field. And like I said, we're the walking billboards. So we need to be the ones to kind of promote that to our students. But it's grabbing those students who are interested in any of the education field and pulling them and having those intentional conversations and being that mentor for them to create that pathway. I think those are the best ways to do it. But
Good. Colleagues and peers are telling me that finding quality teachers is increasingly challenging and difficult. And universally, everyone says this kind of project, homegrown teachers, is far and away the best avenue to address that. So thank you for your work.
absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Julie, is anybody signed up for public comment in regards to World's Best Workplace?
No one has signed up.
And I'm looking for a motion to approve the 21-22 World's Best Workforce Summary and Achievement Integration Progress Report.
So,
Moved by Pat, do I have a second? Second by Mark. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Sorry, Ben, I almost forgot. Motion is approved.
I'm a fly on the wall.
I know.
Brian, great report. Thank you.
Thank you both. Thank you, Brian. We'll just take a few minutes break here. It's 5:55, and the second part of our meeting around the truth and taxation will begin at 6 o'clock.
I come home till like 9 o'clock.
Is that crazy?
We still haven't got a lot.
No, I'm just hoping Ollie and Taz don't jump up to eat the cookies.
Right.
I covered them, but there's no guarantee.
School Board for the Truth in Taxation hearing. Director Ben Hawkins is attending remotely at 1105 Northeast Fifth Avenue in Grand Rapids, Minnesota. I'm looking for an approval of the agenda.
Move to approve, David.
Moved by
Second, Mark.
David, second by Mark. And because this is a special meeting, we're moving right into effective and efficient systems with
Need a
truth. Oh, all those in favor, any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Motion approved. Moving right into number 5, effective and efficient systems with truth and taxation. Okay.
Good
Welcome.
evening. On this exciting topic, I will try to not take up too much of your time, but feel free to jump in with any questions you have throughout the presentation. And then at the end, if there's any public that wants to ask questions, I'm open to any of it. So we're required by state to have this meeting. They lay out very clearly what we need to do, even to the point that it needs to be after 6 o'clock. So thank you for waiting for that. And then I need to go over a list of requirements. This law was passed in 1989. So we've been kind of following the same format. I looked back to some of Ben's presentations and it's pretty similar. So this is a repeat from when we talked about the levy in September. So you approved a max levy in September, and that's just a term. It's just the maximum amount that we can levy. It's not a dollar amount. And at that point, it was negative 0.8%. Still that, our levy is going down. But when we do that in September, we are approving a levy that we'll talk about now in December. The county will assess this to taxpayers who will pay for it next May and October. And then it will go into our next year's budget that we haven't even set yet. So it's really, the cart before the horse, but we don't have a lot of leeway on our levy anyway.
So Kara, just for clarification, when you say our next year's budget, we're talking about the 23-24 budget, correct?
Yep. Okay. And our budget is different. The city and the county are on a calendar year. We're on our fiscal year. So we run from July 1st to June 30th. And if you should have gotten your tax form, but new this year is this supplemental budget information that you got, and the county, the city, and I had to fill this all out. I do have this in the presentation. It's a little bit different because this was due in September and our audit wasn't finished by then. But it's good to see, overall, the whole, if you live in Grand Rapids School District in the city of Grand Rapids and Itasca County, your levy is going to be basically flat. It's going to go down a little bit, actually. So that's good news. The only thing that's going to affect you is your property values if those change. So with this chart, this to me is interesting. Over the this shows 30 years, but the blue line is how much school districts have levied overall total. And you can see it's about doubled over 30 years what they've levied. The red line is other governments, how much their levy on the public has increased. It's about 4 times the amount that they had levied 30 years ago. When I went back, I couldn't go back and find exactly what we levied back in 1992, but I did go back over 20 years. And over 20 years, our levy has only gone up 11%. So I thought that was really amazing. Our taxpayers have, if you think about the inflation amount, that doesn't even account for inflation. So 11%. Our levy is determined, the assessor determines your market value of your home. The Minnesota State Legislature determines these formulas. I have 40 pages of calculations that go into our levy calculation. And that is calculated based on by the state audit or the county auditor and the tax rate and the property values, and that spits out an amount for you. The thing with the school levy, we have basically no say over what we get. It's set by legislature. We could turn some of the money down, but you know what our budget situation is. There is not a lot of money that we could do without. So we are left with that. These are the tax rates, just the overall tax rates for the different property classifications in Minnesota. So if you had a home that was $100,000, you couldn't just take it times 1.22 and figure out, your tax capacity and how much. There's also a homestead market value credit, and you probably see that on your property taxes. It's a credit. It decreases the amount of property taxes you have to pay if your home is under $413,000. If it's not, then that credit does not apply to you. The interesting thing about this with residential homestead and the percentage, residents pay over 52% of the whole taxes in the state of Minnesota. So as a taxpayer, as a homeowner, I know that. You guys feel it also. So we're trying to do what we can. This is our district for the past 2 years, and it's a lot of information and it's a lot of numbers. It's a little hard to look at, but if you're kind of a numbers geek like me, I think it's kind of cool to look at how much our values have changed. So from taxes payable 21 to 22, we've increased about $150 million in our market value. Our referendum market value is the amount if we were to have a referendum, an operating referendum, that would be taxed. You can see that a lot of our population, our market value is made up of seasonal recreation. And when you go over to the referendum market value, that is not affected by referendums. And you can see all the, agriculture, that does not get an operating referendum. So it's basically homestead and commercial that absorb the majority of the taxes. For the agriculture, there is a credit out there that the state put in place. It was $650 million. And that goes to any property owners that have ag land. It helps offset their taxes. And it's at 70% right now. It reduces the taxes for them. We get about $145,000 in state aid that does not get levied on our taxpayers.
Kara, just a point of clarification. When I hear ag, I think of farming, but this ag to school is much broader than just farming. I believe it's timber owners as well.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yep.
Thank you.
Part of our levy and a levy presentation that the majority of schools in the state of Minnesota talk about is their referendum. We are part of the 28% of schools in the state of Minnesota that do not have an operating referendum. The average, the median, is $492 per pupil unit. So if we just had the average, we would have $2.1 million more in operating referendum or operating revenue. We would not be worrying so much about our budget. The upper third of districts in the state of Minnesota, that average is $990. We would have about $5 million more in operating aid to assist with our operations. So 94 districts in the state have zero. Their local taxpayers do not put in any extra tax revenue to support the districts, and we are one of those 94 districts. We have many different funds. The funds that are affected by our levy are the general fund and our debt service funds, which are debt service, and then our OPEB debt service. Here is the form that's in your tax bill. This is updated for real numbers. After our audit was done, it doesn't change very much. To me, it's not a lot of good information here anyway. We do have our budget on our website. We have our audit on our website, which is a lot more information in a different format. It's easier to read. One of the requirements I need to talk about is our general fund sources of revenue. This has not changed a lot except for the federal aid, and we all know that that is COVID money. As we use the COVID money to balance our budget, because we are a balanced budget this year, the other parts decrease a little bit. The taxes has decreased from 17% of our total budget 5 years ago to 13%. And I hope it's just a conservative budget on my part, but I don't think it's too far off. The 72% of state aids is about $42 million. And of that $42 million, 82% of that is the basic formula that, you hear about that, the basic formula, they're going to give us 2% on that, yay. Well, 2% is about $600,000. So when you look at our budget of $59.9 million and think 2%, we're going to get a raise at 2%. That's not very much. In fact, not $1 in that 60 million is affected by inflation. We get no additional revenue because of the inflation that we are experiencing. So a lot of districts have operating referendums that have the inflation factor written into them. So when times like this fall on them, they have a little bit of help, but we don't have anything like that. In addition to our levy not keeping up with what's been happening in the state over the last 30 years, the basic education formula, they detach that from inflation. So if this number was a lot smaller last year, I think it was like $864. This year it's $1,200 that we would receive more per pupil because of inflation. What that would do for us is $5.4 million. If the state was funding us at what they were funding us before, if that revenue is tied to inflation, we would not be worrying about our budget at all. We would be implementing all sorts of fun programs. So this is really hard to see, and I hope the legislature takes this seriously with this inflation this year. Now, as opposed to our revenues, there's a lot of things that are affected by inflation in our expenditures. Our biggest expense categories are special ed and instruction, as it should be. 68% of our budget is put directly to the classroom. The 10% for pupil support is health and transportation. And 15% is higher for our buildings and grounds because we do have some projects that we need to do this year. We do have some long-term facilities needs. We just had 2 boilers go out. We have a chiller go out. We have all sorts of things going on that we need to fix, unfortunately. So that's why that buildings and grounds is larger. The other way to look at our budget is staff and everything else. Part of our budget, 83% of our budget goes towards our staff, supporting our salaries and benefits. The rest of our budget pays for everything else, our lights, our buses, everything. So as it gets down to our levy, there's not too much exciting going on here. We have our debt service, which is $8.3 million. It's up 2%. It's up 2% because we hadn't issued all of our bonds from 2018. So we issued the remaining 3.5 million to improve Southwest so we could get rid of this building, reduce our footprint. So that's why the debt service is going up. The general fund portion is going down. And that's just formulas and adjustments. This is just another way to look at it. I'm sorry, 1.8%. That's what we're going down. Our levy, not 0.8. Again, there's not a lot we can do. The good thing on here is our taconite credit went up slightly, and I'm glad Ben's on the call because he's the expert on this. So that does help out our taxpayers a little bit. $311,000 will be covered by taconite proceeds.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Kara, just a point of clarification. When we talked about this in September, we were looking at 0.8% decrease. And now with the new numbers, we're at 1.8% decrease. Is that correct? So we're seeing that right?
No, this slide is wrong. I apologize. It is 0.8. My paper is correct. It is a 0.8. It's not a 1.8.
Okay.
I apologize. I don't know how that happens. 0.8. Just stick this up there. But 0.8, it is what we approved back in September. Thank you. And we talked about this factors that affect the amount of taxes that we levy. The thing that's not up there is inflation, which affects our cost. General fund is going down. That's a lot of different levies all thrown into one, and the biggest part of it is for operations, but it is our operating capital. It is our LTFM for our school improvements, and it is our Safe Schools levy that will be decreasing by $10,000. So that's very scary to me because that will be less than what the city's contract is for our officers. So we need to think about how we are going to pay for that in the future. Debt service is going up. We had some adjustments on that, but then we also issued that 3.5 million left over from 2018 bonds. And so our debt service is going up 166,000. Do you have any questions?
I do not. Board members? No. No. Julie, has anybody signed up for public input? Okay.
If I can, Madam Chair, just that slide that Kara shared about the effect of delinking our formula from our revenue is just so dramatic. And I don't know that we can talk about this enough, but it's essentially, if we have the same purchasing power now as we had then, we'd have $5.4 million more in revenue. Not more than we had then. If we just had the same as we had then, it'd be $5.4 million. So we are right now trying to operate this school district with $5.4 million less in purchasing power than we had then. That's what we're responsible for. And that's why this is such a challenge right now. This is nothing we did. This isn't a result of a decision that was made or a program or people, or it's not the result of any of that. It's the result of a decision that was made by the legislature to delink inflation from the public school funding formula. And it's had dramatic effects, not just on us. I think people at that time thought that this was going to fix the levy problem, operating referendum problem. It clearly didn't. If 70% of the districts are right back in it, it didn't fix the problem at all. It created more problems, and here we are. And so I just want to make sure that we're emphasizing that point a lot because it's that big of a deal. It's a great slide, Kara.
Thank you, Matt.
Well, that along with this one, if we just had the average amount of levy, we'd have another 2.1 million. That's over $7.5 million that we would have for our staff, for our schools.
Okay.
And
Again,
that's-
not being treated special, being
No.
treated like the average.
Yes.
Right?
Which I think we're better than the average, but
Thanks.
Is
David?
that something that the legislature is discussing? Or-
It's on the legislative, it's on a number of the legislative platforms that I've seen to put an inflationary factor into the formula, but, you know, and obviously that what's done is done. There's no retroactive ability at this point. But even if it was from now forward, we wouldn't find ourselves in 20 years talking about the same thing.
David, did you have a question?
Yes, Kara, thank you for a very thorough report. And I think you answered this, but I just want to clarify it in my mind. When I chat, a lot of people look at their tax evaluations and their property values have gone up statewide. It's like 20 to 30, 35% across the state. That's a big jump in tax value. That doesn't necessarily translate into taxes being paid, particularly to the schools. Am I correct in that?
yeah, that is absolutely correct. When we were at the MREA conference, we saw a great slide that showed, you know, your property is 10,000, my property is 10,000. They both go up by 20%. We are both still holding the same amount at 20% higher. And it's just everyone is at a higher percent and it's still allocating the same amount because our levy from the city, county, and school district is basically the same. So it's the same amount. It's just divvied out differently based on what the property values are.
So it's basically being shifted from one area over here to another area over here
Right.
with the same amount being
Yes.
collected
Correct.
Changing
on
the
who pays.
distribution.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
Madam Chair, question, Matt, Kara, I don't know if you know, Matt, maybe you know, how many school districts are there in the state of Minnesota? 370,
31.
360,
331.
331? So 94 of those out of that 331 don't have any type of an operating referendum, and we're one of those.
Thanks. Ben, do you have anything to add? I can't see you, so.
Not at this time, but a very good job, Kara.
Thanks, Ben.
Thank you. I don't have to approve a report for truth and taxation. There's no formal approval.
This will be brought forward on the 19th for approval.
Thank you.
Difficult news. Thank you.
Thank you, Kara. All right, I'm going to adjourn this portion of the meeting for, it's 6:23 according to my watch, and we'll come back together and begin at 6:30.
Selling raffle tickets to support scholarships. And there's a drawing on
stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome to the third portion of our meetings this evening. Ben Hawkins is attending remotely from 1105 Northeast Fifth Avenue in Grand Rapids. Welcome, Ben. I'm looking for an approval of the agenda.
So
Moved by Pat, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mindy. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Hey,
Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. We'll move on to highest student achievement with the endowment indicator report. Hi, Kristen. Welcome, Kristen.
Okay, well, thank you for having us. I'll pass these around to you at the end here. We are thrilled to, can I just put that thing, make it bigger? Is that as big as it goes? Okay, that's fine. Yes. A few years ago, we rebranded. I think it was 3 to 4 years ago. We have our new logo, spent some energy and time on a video, which has reaped great rewards, and then our tagline, Legacy of Greatness, for the endowment. So I'm thrilled to be serving as the current chair for the endowment. Our mission is still together, teaching and learning for life to achieve excellence. That's our, the connection to that is that we directly impact teaching and learning for life to achieve that excellence. So we're directly related to the school and the impact there. We currently have 11 members serving, plus one school district representative. David's our school board representative. We recently hired Amy for the administrative assistant, and she's been great getting us cleaned up. So we have 14 awesome people that serve on our committee. And it's 100% to support the kids and the teachers. So we do have a few committees. Granting committee is my favorite because we get to spend time reviewing all those amazing applications. I'll tell you more about those. Our marketing committee is pretty active now, managing our website, and we're trying to do more with social because that's where people see. So we're trying to do a monthly focus on a current grant. So we've asked all the grant recipients this year to please send your pictures. So with the grant letter this year that they received, we did a media release signature to go home with the students saying, parent, your child is going to be involved with grant dollars through the district, and your child may be on the Facebook page. So of course, if they don't sign that, we would not post their child doing the activities. But that's something we learned that is very helpful to get those signatures right away. And then we have fundraising, which right now we're really just raising funds by writing letters to our sponsors and donors, and that's been very, very productive for us. And then Conley Jansen seems to love the bylaws, so we let him do that. He's the bylaw committee, so he's the only one that likes that kind of stuff, and we let him do it. So in April this year, we did our letter writing campaign. It was fun, right, David? We just sat in a room and stuffed envelopes, and that was pretty productive. And all private donations. We really are cleaning up our mailing list. We have some mailing list recipients that come back to us, so we're really putting effort into cleaning that up and keeping our donor list updated. So our total donations for 2022 was $15,000, which is very fruitful. We used to do an event, so there was, of course, effort and time and money that went into the event to raise money. And it turned out that it was a great community relations activity, but we weren't ending up netting $15,000 out of that. We find going directly to donors is more productive. So that was fun. We really put a lot of effort into saying thank you to our staff. And so we've tried to be creative the last few years with thank yous to the whole district, not just teachers. And so in May of 22, we delivered 650 cookies to every building and all staff. And then our stickers went out. So again, it's just a, hey, we thank you, we appreciate you, and here's a cookie. So that is still part of our effort. And then just this last month, the granting committee, I think, broke a record. We were in the room down there for almost 5 hours. So I know David popped in at the beginning and he said, well, you're still here. And so at the end, because we had a record-breaking year for people applying for funding, we had requests for totaling over $100,000. And we had a little under $75,000 to grant out. So we had to, of course, say no to a few applications, but we really were able to offer the granting funds to a lot of fun projects.
That's pretty amazing.
That is.
I mean,
It's unreal.
the dollar amount awarded in relation to what was asked for.
Mm-hmm. We really, you know, we try to make the application as easy as possible. As you remember, it kind of, we've gotten it down since you've been on the board. It used to be a little more complex, and we just teachers have enough to do. We don't need them sitting and writing grants till midnight the night it's due. And so we have a very simple form. But this year we said, oh, we might need to, you know, really encourage them to. We need details too. We can't just, you know, you can't say we want $10,000 even. We love the ones that come in with a detailed invoice and, you know, and 6 cents, and we know exactly what each cent is going towards. So yeah, it was great. And we spread the word by 4 emails went out to the district, and Conley goes the first day when the staff joins at the Ripe, and he loves to talk about that there. And then Facebook and word of mouth, we just encourage any district employee to have a purpose to go after those funds. That's great. So we're going to highlight those on Facebook. I didn't hear what we got back from Gift of Max Day, but I think we have some donations coming in there. But here's our huge, I love this part, I'm probably gonna cry. Our partnerships with key donors, we're really focusing on that. Of that $15,000 last year, one big check came from Mr. Jim Schneeweiss, who a lot of you know as our superstar substitute teacher in the district. He, back when we did our marketing efforts and put a video out, it's on our webpage, he saw that and he said, I'm giving them money. And he sent a check to the district that said Legacy of Greatness. And he just sent it over here to the office, and no one knew who that was or what to do with the money because it wasn't to the endowment. And he just has, for now 3 years, he's given us over $35,000 that he wants to go in the pockets of the kids, is what he said. You know, or not in the pockets, but for the kids. And so we met with Jim and the Community Foundation, who operates our, who keeps track of our money for us. And he, you know, we educated Jim on how it goes, where we have an operating account and we have a granting account. You know, where do you want your money to go, Jim? And to the grants. And so he is an honorary member now of our granting committee. And so this year, I sent him a spreadsheet with all those applications. And I took out a lot of details, just I didn't want to overwhelm him. And we met an hour and a half before he showed up because we wanted to be organized, and we didn't want him, we wanted his time to be used, you know, the right way. And he did not want his name going to the teachers. He didn't want the kids knowing it was his money donations. But he was going to give, we had $15,000 of that this year of his money to grant. And he came with his handwritten list of exactly which ones he wanted to go towards. He really likes STEM and speech and debate and arts, and he just knew to the penny where he wanted his money to go. It was great, and he was so organized. So a lot of teachers got Jim Schneeweiss money this year. That's great. And then when he left, he said that he'd been subbing in the schools all that week, and he said, he started crying, and he said, that's why I'm here, because the kids. I would not be here today if it weren't for those kids. Like, he loves our kids in our district. And he loves subbing for them. So that's why we do this. It's amazing. So we want to keep that partnership going strong, continue our online presence, And then our donations for our operating fund, which is not huge, but we do pay the admin assistant. And then we have some, mailing and marketing fees that we want to continue writing our letters to donors to support that fund. Zion Church sponsored us this in October, I think, for their giving. So we're just going to keep strengthening that. Conley's trying to get underwriters. And then we were recipients that, thank you, Matt, that Matt showed up to accept the big check for $5,000 from the Timberlake and KOZY, because we were the recipient of their money last month. So appreciative of all these great community committees that we have. There's us giving the money away, and there's Mr. Schneeweiss in the way back. So he got the head of the table and had his little list. And so we, of course, had food for our granted committee meeting. Oh, and this is just us being cheesy. That's a working board meeting, and then Carrie is on the board and was the recipient. So we just did a little pretend handoff for the funding award letter. And then we got together and stuffed all the letters. So the teachers had fun mailboxes, prizes on 2 Mondays ago. So the money should be at the schools this week for the grants. So again, we appreciate that Cozy and Timberlake donation. And Matt Gross for seconded for us. And we'd like to put if you want to give, there's our little QR code, so people can just scan that and donate anytime. So, yeah. What questions do people have?
Sure, thank you. Kristen, I'm going to put you on the spot.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah.
You reviewed 81 grants. Tell us what stuck in your mind as something that was noteworthy.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. A lot to the arts, which we love. I mean, we used to not be able to do busing, but we realized, well, if the kids can't get a bus, they can't go anywhere. And so a lot of requests for tickets to the Rife and then busing to the Rife, which is amazing. The Water Summit is something we're always so happy to support. And so we, I can't remember who writes, someone writes it. I think Jen Shadeen wrote that one this year for the Water Summit. Our favorite one is just warms our heart. It was last year and this year in Big Fork. And I'm sorry, I can't remember the staff member's name. But they did a collaborative project with kindergartners and seniors. And the kindergartners created a monster in their head and told the senior about this monster. And then they wrote a story about the monster. And then the seniors created 3D images, whether they sewed it or did mache or some art medium of the monster. And so then between the kindergartner and the senior, they've spent all this time together creating this little story and this visual of their monster. That's been the best. I think they call them, I can't remember, their cuddlies or something. There is a fair amount for activities and sports in the Phi Ed classes, I think, which is fun. So I'm trying to think of some pickleball equipment, things that are going to be sustainable, that they're not just using this year, they're able to use it and ongoing. Can you think of any other, David, that we?
No, and these are all things that are above and beyond what would normally be funded in the school's budget.
Absolutely.
So,
And one of the questions we ask is, have you, on the application, have you applied for other sources of granting for this project? And most of the teachers are saying, yes, we've asked our PTC. We also have this grandma that's helping. It is like they are dreaming up projects and collaborating with so many people, and we're just a part of that. So that's huge. They ask for other support too. So yeah, so I would say we have 76 or 78 projects out there this year that we do. So super fun.
wow.
Wow. Any other questions? Thank you so much.
Yeah, Madam Chair, if I can, I think it's such a great, it speaks well to the generosity and the commitment to education, especially at a time when the district's not able to do maybe what we would like to, or that kind of thing, and also to the fact that our teachers are just letting these things go. Like, that'd be the easy thing to do, is just to let these things go, but they're committed to what's happening, to the learning, to the kids, and so we appreciate sort of stepping into the gap.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you're right. So many creative projects, Rachel Pierce is always a favorite with her Spanish explorations, and she's got a little coffee area now for kids
Thank you.
speaking Spanish and drinking coffee. Yeah, so fun. So, all right, well, thank you all too.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank you
so
for a good
much.
report.
All right, moving along to safe and welcome learning environment. And Principal Linder is unable to be here, but did give a written report, principal report for the Itascan Education Center. Is there anything you would like to add, Superintendent Gross?
Well, there's been a lot of change out there at IEC. The reductions, even though there aren't as many staff out there, the reductions had a lot of ripple effects out there. So there's been a lot of adjustments that staff out there have had to make. I've had the chance to be out there and listen to staff a little bit too, and learn some things about how unique that place is and how important it is to listen and make sure that we're treating them equitably and at the same time uniquely when it calls for it. So it's kind of an interesting thing. Sometimes it does take they need to be treated differently, and sometimes they need to be treated the same. And so it's unique. It's an opportunity for sure to educate a group of kids that need to learn. And so I appreciate Clayton's kind of stepping in there and being the lead out there.
Matt, I get questions in the community about people not understanding the difference between the Itascan Education Center and the ALC. Can you just
Sure.
speak a little bit about that?
Sure. The students that are at IEC are adjudicated, so they've been placed there by a court. And the students there can range generally, I'd say, from age 14 and up. And so we have teachers out there, and one of the good things about the staffing changes that happened because of the reductions is we have people out there licensed in all the content areas now, which hasn't always been the case. We haven't always been able to do that. So, but there's a lot to share among the teachers out there, the staff out there. We have paraprofessionals out there as well, and ESPs. They work really, really closely with North Holmes, who manages that unit. And they work, they have to, sometimes it's a minute by minute partnership with North Holmes. So the students are learning math and social studies and science, and they do art projects and things like that. But the big difference is that those students have been adjudicated. The students at the ALC might just be behind in credits. They're earning a regular diploma, graduating from Grand Rapids High School. They might be behind in credits for a variety of reasons, or just need an alternative way to have their educational needs met.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Madam Chair, not a question, just that Matt touched on the fact of the partnership with North Holmes and ISD 318, and it's been there for quite a while. And I think it really works well, and works well for them, works well for us to ultimately attain the goal that we're trying to do there in educating kids. So I want to thank them, North Holmes, and as well as the staff of 318 out there.
Before I forget, and just to add on, one of the commonalities is that students that are served there come from districts outside or including, but not limited to, our school district. So at IEC, those students really could come from just about anywhere.
Sure.
And the district receives tuition for those students. And at the ALC, that the students that enroll there are generally students from either ISD 318 or neighboring school districts that need that kind of an opportunity.
Sure. Thank you. Any other questions, comments? All right, we will move on to 6, effective and efficient systems. A, district facilities update. Welcome, Sean.
Good evening. here for a facilities update and have a lot of good content. So we'll launch into it right away here. I want to share a quick update for the Big Fork School project, quick update for the Grand Rapids High School post-bid brief update. And then we'll also be ready to kind of walk through an overview of the construction documents for the Southwest renovation project. And we're here tonight. The facility steering and ICS is recommending approval of the construction documents for bidding right away. So again, quick illustration of where we're at in that process. The Southwest project is, just wrapped up construction documents and we're ready to launch into bidding here. In the high school project, we're analyzing bids right now. And for the Big Fork project, we're working through procurement. In other words, we're reviewing shop drawings and working with contractors to make sure that we can get everything on time, that we will get everything on time. Just like I said, quick update for Big Fork. All contracts have been issued. Submittals and procurement are well underway. More scheduling collaboration with the project team. And again, with this type of a project happening in what ends up being a really short and fast summer, we want to make sure that we have everything there and ready to go, and that everybody's got kind of knows their steps when we get to that point. Just had our pre-construction meeting with the team last week on the 29th, and collaboration with staff as part of that as well, with Principal Ken up there and the staff are starting to get ready and planning for packing and relocating and kind of doing musical spaces up there. And then for construction, planning to start the addition for the fitness center and the site work by May 15th. It's kind of pending weather and frost and road restrictions and things like that. And then June 5th, as soon as students are released for summer break, we'll start in on the interior renovations. I'll have a time for questions at the end, so we'll be going kind of quick on Big Fork and high school because I want to spend a little more time on the Southwest construction documents tonight. For the high school, again, we opened bids on November 1st. We looked at this at the last board meeting as well. We were about $1.3 million over our base bid scope. And we also had these other alternates here. And pricing for those kind of a la carte alternates broke it out by their handling units. And right now, the facility steering committee is working through options for our next school board meeting to make some decisions. And right now, the path we're heading towards at the moment is add additional funds. Moving to Southwest. So again, construction documents were shared with the facility steering committee and the school board. And the facility steering committee and ICS have reviewed, and we are recommending approval for bidding the project right away. And for the schedule there, right now we're looking at pending approval this evening. We'll work on issuing bidding documents right away this week. And then bid day will be on January 5th. So that'll be exciting to get that one also underway. And then the plan right now, and concurrently with that, we've already submitted this project down to the state, to the Department of Labor and Industry for their plan review. And that's really, that's a critical path part of the schedule right now. So hoping that that times out well with bidding the project, and then we can start in right away. I'm hoping by the end of January, early February, we'll be working on renovations of that project right away. And then again, the parking lot will be summer of 23. Okay, construction documents, pushed hard. I do want to take a moment just to say, kudos and thanks to Mr. Gross, facility steering committee, the design team. This project, we worked really hard to get this one on a track that we can have it ready and be working through it this winter. And so then it can be ready for this next year. So worked real hard on it. I'm real happy with where we're at, and we'll start with site plan. And right now there's a little playground area here and a baseball diamond up in here. So we're adding in this new parking lot in the northwest part of the property. And part of that is creating a new entry right here into the administration, what's going to be the administration wing. And what we try to do with a lot of this project, but that one particular entry as an example, is we're trying to leverage what's there. So we took a window here, opening here, and just opened it up basically, and we're still able to utilize the structural members and elements like that to reduce cost and also create a new flow, their new main entry there. Emergency egress coming out of this space. So we're adding a little sidewalk, and part of this idea with the site plan is to still utilize this existing parking lot here. and then also add in the parking at the northwest. So the plan here will be, typically speaking, ALC entrance will be over in this end, administration will be on this end, and then we'll have community ed, IASC, early ed down in the southeast corner there. Overall view of the building, and I'll be referring to kind of wings for the different spaces. So right now the plan is ALC will be kind of the west wing, administration in the north wing, community ed, IASC, invest early is kind of the southeast part. One thing I've mentioned a few times before as a reminder, the existing gym, we're planning to leave that alone for the most part right now. It can be utilized, programmed for other things, but for construction, not planning to do anything in that space right now.
Sean, can I
Yes, sir.
interrupt for 1 second? I want to make sure for the purposes of this and remind the board and community if they're listening in, the funds to complete this project are left over from the 2018 bond proceeds. So they were originally for facilities. This was one of the things that ballot said it could be used for. So these are facilities dollars that have to be used on facilities. That's the first thing I want to make sure that we are incorporating. And the second thing is that, when we first started and Sean talked about kind of the job of the facilities committee, this was originally looking like a $6 million project, and now it's almost half that. So, there's been a lot of work to reduce the scope, find efficiencies, make this as small as we can so that we can get in there. Because again, the goal of all of this is to eliminate this building, reduce our operating costs, so we can just, again, use this as one of the tools to become more healthy as a school district. By making our footprint smaller. So sorry for interrupting, Sean, but I just wanted to
great information.
set the table with that too.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if everybody caught that. We started at about a $6 million project, and that was my comment about, acknowledging everybody's hard work and scaling that back to where we're at now. Very usable. We're going to have usable spaces, and we've worked hard to leverage what's there as well at the same time. So in the ALC side over here, again, we'll be opening this up and creating a common space, and reception and offices entry is here. And then we'll be repurposing or reutilizing the several classrooms here. I'll cover the alternates in a little bit too and kind of explain that a little bit later. And planning on adding a little door here to create the ALC have their own space on the west wing. And then upgrading the nurses spaces on this side, community ed, planning to utilize the previous media center here and open that space up so that they can have an open office setting there. Again, the gymnasium, not planning any construction work right now, but that will be a usable space once we transition into the building. Again, these spaces over here for our base bid, we're asking for minimal things to get into those spaces, and then that's going to be another bid alternate I'll elaborate on in a moment as well. Also adding a barrier here, again, to create separation between the lower part of the building and the administration north wing. New main entries coming in here, upgrades to the restrooms, and then some of the work happens here as far as building in some walls and creating offices. So we're starting with classrooms as a reminder. So we're basically partitioning off these classrooms to turn them into offices on this end here. Presently, this is the door that goes to that connection to the temporary classroom pods that went away. So this goes away as well. And as part of that effort, what we're doing is closing this off, making that a window, and then this becomes a usable conference space or conference room there. As part of the base bid part of the project, we're not planning on a whole lot of work in here. This is the existing cafeteria. The vision is to have these be 2 meeting rooms that could be separated in the future, and then be able to utilize the kitchen and the servery, the roll-up window and servery counter here. Kitchen stays as is, but that again will be a great usable space to leverage. This is an acoustical ceiling plan that also illustrates well some of the ceilings. You can see the white shades are where we're replacing all the ceilings, and then all these other ones here, ceilings are in great shape still. We're able to repurpose and utilize those there. And you can see up in the administration again, having to partition off the spaces. It just makes sense to add new ceilings and up in here. Same with the new entry to the reception area. So with all of that, this is for our what we're calling base bid. Our construction budget is $2.7 million. So if you remember when we were here last month for design development, we were right about there. Through clarifying some scope, moving some things into bid alternates, and tightening some things up a little bit more, we're actually sitting right now, we're estimating to be a little bit under that construction budget for our base bid. Cross our fingers on that one. Estimating this year has been interesting, to say the least. So that's for base bid. For bid alternates, we have 5 total bid alternates. So I wanted to take a moment to explain that as well. So to illustrate, bid alternates are kind of like the a la carte items on a buffet in a way, or Thanksgiving meal is kind of like your side dishes. The base bid's your turkey, your main course. So that food tends to connect with people on illustration. So, but just to explain that, because not everybody quite grasps when we're talking about base bid, bid alternates, what are these things? The base bid is kind of the main course of the project. We can perform the project with that base bid, and these other bid alternates are side dishes that if we can afford it, if we have bid efficiencies, when we open up the bids, then we'll kind of go through and select which ones we want to do. So in total, we have 5 bid alternates. Alternate number 1, in the 2 meeting spaces I mentioned earlier, this is the present cafeteria. It's adding in a folding partition here, which may not sound like a lot, but we have to add in an actual steel member in here and cut concrete and add columns. And so there's a little involved with this idea here. The backup plan is to do kind of a modular separator, possibly 2. So there still could be 2 meeting spaces, but we wanted to get the idea with a bid alternate is we're asking for a separate price from the contractors, and then the owner has a decision at that time of whether it's something they'd like to select or not. So the school district is definitely not obligated to have to do this, and we can keep the main course of the project going if this is the price that we like. Alternate number 2 is for the console rooms. Again, this is the ALC West Wing. We wanted to see a price point for these as well. So we're asking for a separate price for 2 console rooms. It's a little more detail there. And the idea is, again, leveraging sharing spaces and things like that. So we're putting a door on either side of these consult spaces. So then either classroom could utilize those as well.
Just to clarify too, these aren't in any kind of order.
Yeah. It's kind of, the order is just kind of how the ideas came up really at this point. Yeah, so there's no priority there. Thank you, Mr. Gross, for clarifying that. Yeah. Alternate number 3 for the meeting rooms is really repainting the space, giving a fresh coat of paint. Alternate number 4 is upgrading finishes to these 3 spaces here for Invest Early, IASK, and SPED. And then alternate number 5 is this is the restroom. ALC wing is on the west here. If you were to turn up that way, go to the north wing, there's a set of restrooms here. So we're asking for separate pricing in alternate number 5 to really renovate that. Presently, there's stalls here and then kind of the community hand washing station. So what we want to do is add 2 individual toilets there. And as part of that, we would also get a storage room. This space would become a storage room. And then we'll add hookups for 2 hookups, pardon me, for a washer and a dryer there. Again, our budget, $2.7 million for construction with the site. Overall, we have about $3.6 million of mostly is leftover bond fund referendums from the elementary schools. So going forward, working through procurement, bidding Southwest, approved contracts for the high school at the next board meeting, and then we'll really be working on bidding Southwest, and we'll be working into procurement and monitoring, making sure we're getting those materials and equipment on time. Next summer is going to be a busy one. Big Fork improvements, Southwest parking lot improvements, and starting the Grand Rapids High School Phase 1. Any questions at all?
Any questions from board members?
Madam
Madam
Chair.
Chair, go ahead.
Go ahead, David.
Madam Chair, Sean, thank you
Yes, sir.
for a very detailed explanation. Congratulations and kudos to you and to the Facilities Committee and others for scaling this back. I know those are really difficult decisions to make, but given the financial situation that we're in, it's very much appreciated. Matt, I understood you to say that this was, funding for this was included when we originally passed a bond in 2018. So those funds are already there.
Correct.
In addition, we'll be realizing some savings as we move some of these programs that are currently scattered about. We'll realize some savings. Is that true?
That's correct. Currently, the ALC is the best example of that. We currently lease space that the ALC occupies, and that lease is about $80,000 a year, I think.
So financially, this makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
And to add on to that, some of the in terms of the you have operating costs and maintenance costs, some of the operating costs, we're currently, as we head into the heating season, we're having to pay to keep Southwest warm enough to keep water from freezing. So we're paying. It's not like it's empty and costing us nothing to run that building now. It's costing us something to run it. And so we're not going from nothing to something on the utility side. Some of those costs will be just a little bit higher as we're occupying it, but again, hoping to eliminate this one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, and I would just add, going back to when we did the elementaries, we told the community what we were going to do, and we're continuing to follow through on that plan, the story with them. So, and again, the other key is reducing our footprint by vacating the admin building here and moving it down to Southwest. So in the end, we're going to realize some savings.
Thank you, Pat.
Madam Chair, just to add to people that that will be relocated to this facility have had opportunity to provide input a variety of times, whether that was meeting with the architect originally and talking about what was needed, looking at the plan, offering advice or suggestions. Many of the staff that will be relocated there have actually visited there. I walked through with the ALC staff that were able to make it a few weeks ago, and got some more feedback that day that showed up on the plan today. So people have had the opportunity to speak into it. Now, we are moving into a used building, and so not everything is going to be exactly how everybody would want it if we were starting from scratch. That's part of renovating, right? You kind of have to work with what you have. But people have had the opportunity to ask questions and offer suggestions. Our ALC staff, they're one of the things that they talked about, and I wasn't sure how they would, how they'd feel about being in a different building, but the spaces, their classrooms are much bigger at Southwest, and they all commented on the storage that is at Southwest versus what they have now. So there's definitely some benefits that way. There's a nurse space at Southwest that we currently don't really have. We don't really have a nurse to put in that space, but we're working on some ideas for that. And then you heard Sean talk about hopefully the ability to have a washer and dryer hook up there and washer and dryer eventually there, because sometimes the students are just in transition and might need that. We have that at our elementary schools for the same reason. So definitely some advantages in it. I think I've said before, I think the community ed space here, at some point that community ed space is going to be space we really, really appreciate, because it's going to be unique and good, and we're going to be able to do some things there that we haven't been able to do. So I think that's going to be one of those pleasant surprises down the road.
Cool. Just a question, only because I've heard it, which is interesting, about 4 or 5 times in the last couple months, is questions about the food pantry and the high usage, and just wondering if there's an opportunity to put a food pantry type thing in that building.
Always opportunity. I'm sure.
Because they're highly used. I mean, I've heard that they're highly used in all schools, and not just the littles, but all the way through the high school. And with costs, what they are now, I think a lot of kids are reaching a point where they're looking for resources. And
Yep.
so just a thought as we're sitting here,
Yeah,
and somebody probably already said it, so I'm probably not saying anything new, but
well, some of our ALC students are independent,
yeah,
so that's a good idea.
just a thought. But awesome, really cool. It's
you,
fun to see this all come.
I agree.
All right, so you're looking for approval, right?
Yeah, when you're ready for the next
So moved,
agenda
Madam Chair.
bullet point, I'll stick around in case any other questions come up.
Okay.
We are approving what?
Moved by
Construction
Pat
documents
for the
for Southwest School.
Southwest School construction documents for bidding.
Second.
And Ben is seconding. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those not in favor, say nay. Hearing none. Motion is approved.
Thanks, Sean.
Thank you. Have a
Thanks.
good evening.
Bidding shall proceed. Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you. All right, I'm looking for approval of minutes of the 11/15/22 regular school board meeting.
So moved.
Moved by Mindy. Have a second?
Second.
Second by Mark. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Oh, sorry, Ben. Opposed? Hearing none. Motion passes. Moving on to approval of the consent agenda. Casey.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Good evening, board. Tonight on the consent agenda, we have Charles Burris, maintenance technician transfer hire, Evan Card, custodian replacement hire, Janice Carr, ESP retirement. Jan has served in our district for 15 years. Rebecca Jones, student advocate replacement hire, Vicki Larson, custodian replacement hire, Anya Newhouse, custodian transfer hire, Catherine Ross, ESP replacement hire, Annalise Schmitz, coach replacement hire, Shane Williams, master electrician replacement hire, and Emma Yunkin, Big Fork Junior High girls basketball coach replacement hire. I'm recommending approval of the consent agenda.
Do I have a motion?
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Moved by David. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Pat. There is no discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Did we lose Ben? All right, opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Moving on to approve permission to post a .2 FTE gifted and talented ESP position. Casey.
Thank you. So recently, our Title IV budget was approved by MDE, and it included a .2 gifted and talented educational support professional. So we are looking for permission to post this position. It will be covered 100% by Title IV funding, and we do plan to cease the position at the end of the fiscal year, since funding will not be guaranteed for next year.
Thank you. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Mindy. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mark. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Casey. Looking to approve the resolution to accept donations and gifts for July, August, and September of 2022. Clerk Marty, will you read the donation amounts?
Resolution for accepting donations. Whereas Minnesota Statutes 123B.02 subdivision 6 provides, quote, the board may receive for the benefit of the district bequests, donations, or gifts for any proper purpose and apply the same to the purpose designated. In that behalf, the board may act as trustee of any trust created for the benefit of the district or for the benefit of pupils thereof, including trusts created to provide pupils of the district with advanced education after completion of high school in the advancement of education, end quote. And whereas Minnesota Statutes 465.03 provides, quote, any city, county, school district, or town may accept a grant or device of real or personal property and maintain such property for the benefit of its citizens in accordance with the terms prescribed by the donor. Nothing herein shall authorize such acceptance or use for religious or sectarian purposes. Every such acceptance shall be by resolution of the governing body adopted by a 2/3 majority of its members expressing such terms in full, end quote. Therefore, be it resolved that the School Board of Independent School District Number 318 gratefully accepts the following donations as shown in the attachments provided to the board. For July 2022, $1,870. For August 2022, $100. And for September of 2022, $11,575.
We're looking for a motion.
So moved.
Moved by Pat,
Second.
second by Mark. Any discussion?
Madam Chair, again, I just want to thank the community, businesses, as well as the individuals and the partnership that we have with them for these donations. It really helps serve our students well. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments for discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Moving on to G, approve resolution for the IRA Civic Center lease agreement with the City of Grand Rapids. Superintendent Gross.
We've had a lease agreement with the city for the IRA Civic Center for many years. This lease agreement is a little bit different in part because of the funding that the city received to complete its renovations. And so kind of like we needed to redo our agreements on the RIFE when we received state bonding money. There's some real specific language that has to be in a lease agreement. That's what happened here. So our lease agreement changed, has a little bit more, had more specifics and direction as far as what needed to be in here. I think the short is that it's a longer term than we have had before. This is a 5-year term, which again was really a function of the funding that the city got for its renovation. And then second, it includes a 3% increase in each of the 5 years, which seemed reasonable and comes with recommendation of myself and Kara.
Thank you. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Mark. Do I have a second?
Second, David.
By David. Any discussion? I'd just like to say the use of the IRA Civic Center goes beyond hockey, right?
Yeah.
Just for the general public, like hockey is a big user of it, both boys and girls hockey. Our cheerleaders use it. We also use it for some physical education classes. There's ticket sales, there's exclusive locker rooms for our high school students, our varsity students. There's a storage area that we use. We have locker rooms for visiting football teams. We have used the upper lobby for ski team practices. There's high school graduation ceremonies that have been held there in the past, right, Mark?
Yep.
We have emergency evacuation that we hold there as well. But also there's a lot of just dry floor activities when that ice goes out. Baseball, softball, lacrosse, tennis, prom. There's a lot of stuff that goes on there. So the use of that building goes far beyond the sheets of ice. So I just want everybody to know when we're talking about the contract, we're talking about all of that.
Madam Chair, the other side of it is that if we didn't lease,
Right.
one, what's our alternative? Two, I don't think we want to get into owning any type of an arena. And I think if you talk with other cities that have arenas, probably be willing to sell it to you.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So for us as a school district, it's a good bargain.
Yeah. All right. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Looking to approve ice rink construction and maintenance agreement with Grand Rapids, with the City of Grand Rapids. Superintendent Gross?
We've mentioned a little bit in the past, I think this came up in previous reports for myself, and I think it came up in our report from our Indian Education Director, Bruce Goodwin. But we the ice rink that is currently on the old Murphy property will be taken down. The boards are wearing out and things like that. And the city would like to relocate a rink or still have a rink on that end of town. The best place that the city found was on a piece of property that the district owns between the middle school and East Rapids Elementary. So this agreement is for the construction and maintenance of that rink. And you can see that our responsibility down item 2, wearing out and things like that, the city would like to relocate a rink or still have a rink on that. That's what I sound like. So our responsibilities as a school district are listed in item number 2 here, and it's just limited to cooperating with the city. They take care of everything. They construct it, they maintain it, they plow it, they Zamboni and stuff. We're just providing the place for it to be. Our Indian education program will be establishing a cultural education site to the south, about a block or so, in an area of woods. The city, as part of this kind of an agreement, created an approach so that we can get materials up in there. They did some clearing in there, and just this last week, we learned that the district was awarded, or I should say our Geekanua Matawin program was awarded a $150,000 grant from Blandon to help with that, the work needed to construct that cultural education site. So that continues to fall into place. Bruce and Jessica are thrilled. We're all thrilled. It's just going to be, it's going to be great. So a lot of context, but really this is just about relocating the rink from where we used to have it on our property to a new place on our property. The city takes care of it and does everything.
So there's no financial impact?
No financial impact to us at all. Just a place really even closer to more kids for us to access. The East will be able to get to it easy. Middle school kids will be able to get to it easy. So it's actually even a better location, I think.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Mindy. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Pat. Any discussion?
Just my, my gratitude to the city for working with us on this. This is a great partnership. They brought this to us and have been real good about working through what, the things that were non-negotiables for us. And so I think it's just a real win-win for the city and for the school district.
Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Opposed? Motion passes. All right, we're looking to accept the first reading on the following policies. And again, we're accepting the first reading with no vote. Superintendent Gross, you want to go through them?
All right, a handful of policies here. Number 209, you can see in your packet there. Again, reviewed by the Policy Review Committee way back in October. There was just some language that was added to clarify the purpose of the policy and also to clarify the kind of training that the school district requires of board members. 210, this change was really predicated by a change in state law. And if you look on the 5th page of the policy, that second statute, Minnesota Statute 123B.195 is the one specifically that resulted in the change, and that change was increasing the amount of money that a school board member can earn when working for the school district from previous amount to $20,000. Again, that statute changed, that specific statute changed, so our policy that is based on that law is recommended to change. 410 had limited changes, just clarifying some language and terminology in that policy around the Family Medical Leave Act. Similar with 415, definitions and language changes were adjusted So you can check those changes out. Policy 599 is new, and this is memorials for deceased students or staff. And obviously not a policy that we want to have to think about, but at the same time, this is the time to do that. And essentially what this policy details is if we had a student or staff person pass away, how would we handle that situation in terms of our facilities, in terms of gifts, in terms of memorials, and having a policy that sort of guides how we act really helps us if or when that ends up happening, so that what we're doing doesn't feel in any way like a variation from what we said we would do or in any way personal. So we looked at a few example policies to come up with this language, and I'm sure there are some things maybe down the road that we, as we learn or go through this some more, we might want to adjust, but I think it does a good job of sort of walking through a variety of places where this could come up and what might be an appropriate response or action by the school district.
Thank you. Any further discussion or questions as to policy? All right, thank you. Looking now to number 7 for board reports. And if you'll notice, our student representatives were not able to be here this evening. So we don't have current events, I don't think, for the high school. And I don't see Darren, and I don't see any high school teachers. So, but I'm sure if you look on the activities calendar, it's full. There's a lot of stuff going on right now. So David?
Yes, I'll go. I had a chance to meet with World's Best Workforce, and we had that report earlier this evening. Fascinating committee, a lot of great work happening there. Attended the policy review committee, and Superintendent Gross just reported on the work there. Met with the Boys and Girls Club. Changes there. We have a change in leadership. Lori Kangas Olson is stepping down, so we're filling the leadership position at Boys and Girls Club, and that's going to be coming up in coming weeks. A special shout out to our students for the Madrigal Dinner, which is a great annual tradition of our music program. Adam Gebner and the students did a fabulous job. Had a really good turnout this past weekend. Delegate Assembly, I think Pat's going to report on that, Pat Maduri and I attended the Delegate Assembly and looked at what kind of a platform we're proposing be put forward for our behalf. The ESP Labor Management Committee met and dealt in some depth with the issue of substitutes, how we can encourage a broader base of substitutes. We just simply do not have enough substitute teachers and substitute ESPs in particular for our school, and how can we expand that pool. And talked a bit about realignment process for substitutes and how we can make that a more respectful process as we move forward.
Thanks, David. Okay.
Madam Chair, thank you. As David alluded to, he and I attended the Minnesota State School Board Association Delegate Assembly Friday, Saturday last week. That's where they set their legislative agenda for the coming legislative season. David had Julie make a copy of kind of the resolutions voting tracker, they called it. It shows the 18 resolutions, how the votes went. 14 passed, 4 failed. The 14 that passed, this gives the State School Board Association some guidance when you go to the legislature advocating for the school district. Also, as we talked in previous meeting, 5 and 5 is what the State School Board Association is advocating for, along with MREA, the Minnesota Rural Education Association, and I believe the Superintendent's Association is advocating the same. So with that. Interesting, a couple of the resolutions are interesting for me, and a little bit of my perspective. I think we had a little divide between rural education and urban education. That was a little bit evident on how we deal with subs, cutting TRA payments for ESPs and teachers that come in and substituting that. But the thing that really stood out for me is that, and we alluded to it tonight in our board meeting, about the partnerships that we have within our communities. And I'll give you an example. There was a school district, and this was an urban school district, wanted to go to the legislature and ask them to change the law so that school districts do not have to be voting places. Okay. And I paused in my mind and thought about that, and some people spoke against it for good reasons in regards to the students in education about voting in that. But I thought back to us in the partnership that we have with Itasca County and how well we work with them in setting voting places, whether it be at a school or other places around the county. And you sit down and look at our geography and how big our county is and how big our district is within that county, and compare it to the counties around the metropolitan area and the districts around the metropolitan area. And my first question in my mind is that, well, did you have a conversation with your county auditor, and maybe talking about and having discussions and changing voting places before you run to the legislature and ask the law to be changed? And I saw this in my previous work as well. And it just bodes well for me is that you got to have relationships to get things done. You got to have communication and have those, get those relationships done. And kudos to Matt and other board members and our staff working with other people in our community to solve problems and not have to run to the legislature and to create a problem when I say running to the legislature. So that was a little bit evident for me coming out of this delegate assembly this year. I would say, and I think David would agree, great discussion on debate in regards to resolutions that have failed, as well as in regards to resolutions that have passed. And the other interesting piece is it's just a guide, right, for the State School Board Association. But sitting and listening, some think we're writing legislation, right, through these resolutions. So again, I thought the debate was good and healthy, and always a great process. There was 104, I think I got that right, 104 delegates there from out of that 300, what did we say, 15, 20 school districts around the state. So it's always interesting and fun and listening to the issues that everybody has, and are the same issues that we have, from lack of subs for teachers, lack of subs for ESPs, lack of sub of bus drivers, equalization aid, overall funding, you name it. It's really the same throughout, just on a smaller scale. Obviously, the bigger school district, the bigger the scale, smaller school district, smaller the scale. So, David, I don't know if you want to add anything else to that, or?
No, I think just in general, there was strong support for funding for education, as you said, 5 and 5, plus funding for the special education cross subsidy. There was very strong support for that, and also strong support for local decision making.
Less mandates.
And especially unfunded mandates were not welcome at the table. That's kind of where we're at.
That's all I had, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Can they find these anywhere, or some of the pieces? Does MREA or MSBA, are they moving anything forward as far as legislative lists, like things they're going to bat for us
Cross subsidy,
for?
special ed cross subsidy,
Yep.
and 5 and 5 on the formula.
Got it.
Those are the
Those
top
are the
two,
two main ones.
right?
Yep. Okay.
And some of this is a little bit of defense, and some of it is, let's see how the session goes and where we can interject.
Got it. Okay. Thank you. Mark?
Nothing from me.
Mindy?
At a wellness committee meeting today, and I think I mentioned this in a previous board meeting, but we partnered with the YMCA, Public Health, Grand Itasca, UMD College of Pharmacy students, and Elder Circle to do a health fair for district employees. So the Y always has a health fair, at least they did 3 years ago before COVID. And so they have one in the fall and in the spring. So the wellness committee kind of partnered with them to see if we could get district employees to come from 3 to 5 in the afternoon. We didn't get a very good turnout. We were a little behind getting the information out to district employees. So if they do one in the spring, we might try a different setting. It was also at the Y. We thought maybe it would be better at the school. But they did free screenings for blood pressure, lipid panel for glucose levels, mental health information was available. The Y ended up offering free use of the Y for those 2 hours. Anyway, we might try that again in the spring, and we'll do it at least once a year for district employees and just try to improve on it. We have a meeting tomorrow to talk about what we could do better. And I think communication is probably one of them, but that's what the wellness committee was up to this last couple of months.
Thanks. Ben?
I attended the facilities committee, and that's all I have.
Okay, thanks. I just had regular agenda setting meetings, so I didn't have any committee meetings. Matt, we'll move on to the superintendent report.
Since our last board meeting, I've had the chance a couple different times to meet with some of our staff leaders, met with Carol and some other teacher leaders to talk about how we can work on trust. And so that's something that's important. We know that, and some of the things that we need to do are or can do are small and low-hanging fruit, and some things will take more energy. So, but I think the big thing is we're committed to the work. So, looking forward to that. The Fringe Benefit Committee meets again soon. There's a subcommittee that's been meeting to do some problem solving and trying to answer some questions for staff that came out of the recent presentation. And so I'm proud of the work that that group's doing. Again, thinking about our future as a school district and being healthy in all senses of the word. Last week, had a couple of meetings regarding Invest Early. So a lot of changes there. Funding's going away, we know that. Change with new leadership there, with Darla Beaver coming into this director role for Invest Early, and navigating there and changing roles of the leadership team, knowing that Invest Early is going to look different moving forward. And Jackie Skelly coming into a new position in IASC, and so how that's affecting the dynamics within Invest Early, and also just having some conversations about early on about what do we want this to look like in the future, knowing that things are going to have to change, and what do districts see as early childhood needs, and to what degree is the community interested in becoming more involved in that, and what interest do employers have in becoming more involved in that. One of the things we've learned with Invest Early, I think, is that no one provider can solve all of our early childhood problems. It's going to take a bunch of people and a bunch of collaboration. So a lot to do there still. Long day today, took a group down to I think it was probably the first. It was a collaborative effort among the School Board Association, the Superintendent's Association, and the Principals Associations to host a school safety symposium. And so heard some really good speakers. One was from some actually homegrown talent here. I think they're out of Hamlin University, but they've created an organization called the Violence Project, and they've done a deep dive into violence, mass violence, including but not limited to what's happened in schools, and looked into these individuals that have carried these things out, their pathway to violence, and if there are things we can learn about that. And there are some things. So great discussion amongst our team that was there. We had a couple principals there, security staff, one of our SROs was there. Anna was there from special services, so really good group. Heard from a mother who lost a child to Sandy Hook, and so that was moving, but also educational. She had some things that she learned as a parent in the middle of that process, and questions that she had, and she has put her energy for the last 10 years. It'll be 10 years here in December, in a couple weeks. But being part of forming an organization that serves as a central location for resources regarding school safety. So really, really good resources there. And then there was an excellent panel with a variety of folks. And then we also heard from someone from the Department of Homeland Security, again, with all kinds of resources for us. But, you know, one of the things that I think was a takeaway for our group, it's not new, but it's good to be reminded, like, the best way for our schools to be safe is for us to know our kids really, really well, and for them to feel connected to school. We heard that from just about every presenter, is that one of those characteristics that we see in individuals who have carried out these acts, they were disconnected from school and they were alone. And so as we think about that in our strategic plan, I think it shows up in there in some of our strategic directions. People feeling like they belong and feeling known. And so I'm glad that that's a part of our plan. And so now it will be, how do we incorporate the safety component of that into that plan too when we start talking about actions. But, you know, there's obviously physical things that we can do to our buildings, and those are important. But the other thing that we heard today, and isn't, you know, even in our the experience we've had in Minnesota, these individuals are usually here. They come from inside. They're current students or people that were students. And so they're people that know our community, know our schools. And so knowing people, relationships, connections, all those things are so important. And I think there are things we can do to get more intentional about those too, including how we're monitoring that, and, you know, how we're responding when we identify a student that isn't connected to the school in some way. What interventions, you know, we talk about academic interventions, and we talk about behavior interventions when they do something that maybe breaks rules, but what kind of interventions do we have when there's a kid that's just disengaged? So things to think about and learn and work on there.
Matt, one of the things that came up a lot during this last election cycle was mental health, right?
Yeah.
Like, how do we provide mental health to our students? Our students are in high need. And so maybe there's an opportunity for us to talk about the ways that healthcare professionals show up in our schools,
Sure.
because some of it people may or may not be aware of.
Mhm.
And then thinking about, are there grants or other things that we need to be thinking about to get more of those kind of wraparound help to students who are feeling disconnected, or even whether it's from the school or from the community.
Yeah, that community piece is really big. I didn't mention that, and I'm glad you brought that up. Another thing that was brought up a couple times today is the importance of working with your community to identify kids that might be struggling. And specifically, you know, has there been some sort of a dramatic behavior change? And making sure parents know that if they see that at home, that it's okay to let us know that, because we might be seeing the same thing at school. And putting all these pieces together could really be important. And what, you know, the metaphor is used that in many of these cases, like Sandy Hook or Parkland, all the pieces to the puzzle were there, but people just had pieces all over the place. They weren't connected, and the people hadn't had a chance to put them together in a way that gave them a picture ahead of time of what could have been prevented. And so I think that's a part of it, is that community piece, equipping parents. One of the real practical things that was shared, gun sales are up, but the sale of gun safes and and trigger locks and things like that aren't up. And having access to firearms is a big deal in prevention. And that's something really practical that we can talk about. We could talk about, drives of, we can talk about gun safe drives or, trigger guard drives, just raising that awareness in our community that, hey, these are easy. They're not hard to get. Some of them aren't expensive. But it's just one more thing we can do together as a community to take away one more factor.
Thanks, Matt.
Madam Chair, Matt, again, back to the relationships, right? Whether it's internal, external, I think that's key. But back to your point about mental health, that's one of the resolutions here of more dollars towards mental health grants. So hopefully there's some traction gained in the legislature on that. So even though I don't like the grant aspect of it, because we're all competing in amongst everybody, right? But I guess it's a step in the right direction to get some money put towards mental health.
Well, and I think to the, again, to our community, if they're watching and listening, it's something that I've brought up and I'll continue to harp on. Safe schools revenue is something that, to me, it's a priority in many of the platforms. I think if people are asking me what they can do to help keep our schools safe, that's one of the things that I tell them is talk to your legislators about that line, the safe schools revenue funding, because it is the one place in all the lines that Kara talked about tonight. In all of our revenue, it's the one thing, one place that's dedicated to school safety. It's the one line. And what we have right now is ridiculously small. And the proposals that I've seen in the current platforms are to increase that to $100 per kit. And I think that's something that our community should rally behind too. If they want to know what they can do, that's one thing they can do. Talk to our legislators about that specific thing, safe schools revenue, $100 a kit.
Well, because they rallied around keeping the SROs. So that would go right in line
Right.
with, we don't have enough money to cover 2 SROs. We utilize those dollars.
Right.
But channeling energy now for the safety of the schools through a legislator would be important. Thank you. Anything else, Matt?
Nope.
All right, the meeting announcements, there are many, even though it's December between now and the 19th. Go ahead and check out our district website, which is the official notification spot. And then any other business to come before the board?
I do have one more thing. So I like to point to these plaques behind me. I think the fact that we have some folks working on the delegate assembly speaks to it. Just that our board is engaged and in this case engaged in learning. So I have a couple certificates here tonight. The first one, Board Member David Marty, Certificate of Leadership Development for accomplishing Leadership Workshop Series Phase 1, 2, 3, and 4. Thank you, David. Yeah.
Thank you.
It's a good service. I think it's just, it shows the dedication that our board members have to our community and to this work. It's hard and it's long and yeah, I think it's important. And then to Mindy, 2023 Directors Award. And this award is given when a board member completes 100 or more hours of attendance at MSBA and NSBA sponsored meetings and activities within a four-year period of time. So thank you, Mindy.
Thank
Yeah, on behalf of the-
Thank you. Any other business to come before the board? Julie's, anybody signed up for public input?
They have not.
They have not. Well, with that, the meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.